All right. So, starting from Genesis chapter 10, here is a map called the Table of the Nations. This map shows basically where those three groups of nations settled: the Hamites, the Shemites, and the Japhethites. This map, Table of Nations, is produced by Zondervan Publishing House in Grand Rapids, Michigan, USA. But there are, if you go onto Google and Google Table of Nations, you can easily find similar maps like this that will show you the same thing. But let's look at this one here. And this time, let's start with the Shemites. That's chapter 10, verse 22. The Shemites. And the Shemites mostly live over here in the Middle East. Now, to get our bearings here, this is Africa. This is the north coast of Africa right here. This is, it says Canaan. Would be Israel, because Israel under Joshua will be conquering the Canaanites, and this is where Israel lives right here. Now up here, this is Asia Minor, modern Turkey. And over here you have Europe, Macedonia and Greece. This is Greece, Macedonia. And then over here is Italy. So this is Southern Europe over here. Now, the Shemites lived in the Middle East, as we say. So starting with verse 22, it says, the sons of Shem were Elam, right here, and Ashur, right here, Arpachshad. Lud is the only one that's over here in Asia Minor, and Aram. So this is where the Shemites lived mostly. And this one, Arpachshad, was actually the ancestor of Abram and Abraham. So this is where Abraham started, over in this area. Then God told him to go to a land that he would show him. And that land was the land of the Canaanites right here. Now let's look at the Hamites, starting with verse 6. It says the sons of Ham were Cush. Here's Cush, and that's modern day Sudan. Many Bibles translate Cush as Ethiopia, but modern Ethiopia, this is not modern Ethiopia. This is actually modern Sudan, Cush. Then Mitzrayim, the most famous one, is Egypt. Then over here, most scholars think this Put is modern day Libya, but they're not sure. They're not sure. And then the fourth son of Ham is over here, Canaan. And these are the Jebusites, Hittites, Amorites, and so on, whom the Israelites would destroy and take over their land. Now finally, let's go to the Japhethites, starting with verse 2 through 5. Now again, so you see that the Japhethites live mostly away from Israel up here in the northwest. And so the sons of Japheth were Gomer. Here's Gomer, way up here, could be even further up north. And Magog is right about here. Madai, over here, is actually the father of the Persians and the Iranians. Javan, over here on both sides, this is Greece, Javan, and also these are Greek settlements over here on both sides of the Aegean Sea. And Tubal and Meshech. Tubal and Meshech are in modern Turkey, Asia Minor here. So remember that we said before that the Indo-Europeans are called coastlands of the nations. And you can see especially see all these islands and coastlands here of the Japhethites. And this is actually where Paul started his greatest churches, right among these islands and coastlands here. Because this is Philippi, this is where Philippi was. And so we're going to see this now on this other map. We're going to turn to this map here. This map shows the travels, missionary travels of the apostles. And what we have to say is that when we turn to the New Testament, we are confronted with the startling fact that none of the apostles went to Africa. Here's Africa again. And this was all the Roman Empire, this whole thing. And North Egypt was part of the Roman Empire, which made it safe to travel and easy to travel. There's no reason why they could not have gone to Africa. And yet we're going to see that the three greatest apostles all went to the Jews first and then the Japhethites. Let's start with Paul. Here's Jerusalem in Israel. But he and Barnabas made Antioch their headquarters here in Syria. And from there, the very first place they went was to an island of the Japhethites, was Cyprus. Then they came up here into Turkey, and these are the 4 Galatian churches here that he started. Most people agree that these are the Galatian churches right here. And you see from this map here, it's the area of Meshech and Tubal, Japhethites. Then on his second missionary journey, he came back to Antioch and went this way, following this red line over to Troas. Now here is one of the turning points in Christian history. Paul has a vision of a man of Europe saying, come over to us and help us. And so he goes over to Europe for the first time. And he starts these great churches, Philippi right here, Thessalonica, Berea. He comes down to Athens, and then Corinth. This is Greece right here. The most important of all of Japhethite's son was Javan, the father of the Greeks. And here is where Paul had a special vision. Stay here, Paul, from Jesus. You're going to be okay. I have many people in this city. And so that was one of his greatest churches, Corinth. Then on his third missionary journey, Paul comes through here, and he finally comes to Ephesus, which is also in Japhethite territory and actually Javan territory. You see on this map, both sides of this Aegean Sea are Javan. And so this is where Ephesus was. So Paul's 2 greatest churches, Ephesus and Corinth, are both in Japhethite territory. Now, Paul's approach to evangelism was always to go to the Jews first and then to the Greeks. Because many of the Jews had emigrated from Israel to live in other parts of the Roman Empire. And so almost everywhere you go, there would be Jews, and if there were 10 men, which was the minimum number for a synagogue, then there would be a synagogue in that city. And so Paul founded synagogues in most of the cities where he went. And so he would always go into the synagogue first and proclaim the message that Jesus was the Messiah. And sometimes some of the Jews would accept his message, but many times it was mainly the Greeks. More Greeks got saved, men and women, than Jews. And so this was Paul's motto, and his approach was always go to the Jews first And when they don't accept it, I'll go to the Greeks. And so all these Europeans were getting saved and coming to the Lord. So that's Paul. Now let's go to the next great apostle, Peter. Peter started out as the apostle to the Jews here in Israel. But as the Christian church grew, he eventually went to the Japhethites also. We have reliable tradition that says Peter spent the last few years of his life in Rome, Italy, which is off this map, but over there, it's here on this map. And so that's Europe, that's Italy. And he was actually put to death there. Then think of his letter, his first letter that he wrote, 1 Peter, and see who he addresses it to. Chapter 1, verse 1. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who reside as aliens, scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Though all 5 of those areas are in Asia Minor, up here in Japhethite territory. Here's Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. So Peter also concentrated on the Japhethites. Now, the last one, John, he also was an apostle in the Jews in Israel at first. But again, strong tradition tells us that at the end of his life, he spent the end of his life in Ephesus. And if like me, you believe that he saw the book of Revelation, he saw it on an island, Patmos, which is right there, right off the coast of Ephesus when he was in exile. And so he too was in the islands, coastlands of the nations, the Japhethites. So we have the top 3 apostles, Paul, Peter, and John, all going to the Jews first, and then the Greeks, the Europeans. And it begs the question, why did they do that? Why didn't they go to Africa? And I think the obvious conclusion is that they were reading their Bibles, and they saw these great prophecies on Isaiah saying that, no, it's going to be the Europeans. Go to the Europeans. They are the ones that are going to be receiving it. And it was all backed up by this prophecy that Noah gave to his 2 sons, Shem and Japheth. So we see this more biblical scriptural support for the idea that the time of the Jews was first and the time of the Japhethites, especially the Europeans, was second. Now, a word to my non-white friends: don't let this discourage you, because your time is coming, and now is. Everyone knows that the West is declining. They're struggling. Europe and now the USA is struggling. And that's in the natural political realm. But in the spiritual realm also, missionary experts are all saying that the center of Christianity has moved away from the north hemisphere and has moved to the southern hemisphere, especially Africa. And so I'm going to show you in the next video more to support this and more historical evidence to support where God is moving next.